Hello everyone, welcome to the Rocky Top Rundown. I'm your host, Matthew King, and alongside me is my co-host, Hayden Flatt. Hayden, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Matthew. Can't complain much. How are you?
I'm good. We got lots of sports to talk about and lots of sports to watch this weekend.
Women's golf hosted the Mercedes-Benz Collegiate Championship this past Monday and Tuesday. Our own Josh Lane has the story.
Not many people get the opportunity to play collegiate sport. Even fewer get to coach at that level. So when Cantu got the chance to come back to the University of Tennessee as their head women's golf coach, she didn't hesitate.
Like I said, Tennessee is home sweet home to me, so I'm just ecstatic to be back.
Cantu is Tennessee's fourth all-time head coach. Her first year on Rocky Top also coincides with the program's 30th season of existence, and she hopes to bring Tennessee back to its former glory. For her, it starts with changing the culture.
It's going really well. I will say, I have to remind myself to be patient, that we're only 4 weeks in and it takes some time, but they're all really excited and have bought into it. It's just, I think we're looking at it more long term rather than wanting to have success right now, which is also difficult for our players and us as coaches, but we're excited about the future of the program.
Here outside of the Cherokee Country Club, and on the other side of this building here are the 18 holes where the Lady Vols wrapped up day one of the Mercedes-Benz Collegiate Championship.
Rain poured for most of the day, but it didn't drown out the Lady Vols' spirits. They finished the day tied for first. The weather also didn't keep out the support of the Lady Vols, including new athletic director Danny White, who made an appearance at the first day of the tournament.
This is the same tournament that Cantu played 4 times when she was here at Tennessee and actually won twice. So that experience is something that she looks to bring into the Lady Vols in her first year.
So it's always great to host a tournament and have so many fans and, people in the athletic department come up here and support our team. It's really nice to kind of protect our territory in some way.
For the Rocky Top Rundown, I'm Josh Lane.
Thanks, Josh. The women's golf team travels to Fayetteville to play in the Blessings Collegiate Tournament October 4th through 6th.
Yeah, there was a big homestand for Tennessee this weekend. A lot of games going on here in Knoxville. So if you want to see a game, you have a lot of options to choose from. Tonight, women's soccer opens up SEC home play, taking on the Auburn Tigers at 7 o'clock at Regal Soccer Stadium. The ITA Regional Tennis Tournament also begins today at Good Friend Tennis Center, and that tournament is going to run through Monday. Volleyball and softball as well are both having doubleheaders this weekend, as volleyball is taking on Arkansas at Thompson Bowling Arena Saturday at 4 o'clock and Sunday at noon. Finally, softball is opening up their fall season at Sherry Parker Lee Stadium as the Lady Vols take on Pfeiffer Saturday at 2 o'clock and Louisville Sunday at 2 o'clock. And this is going to be the first season without co-head coach Ralph Weekly.
It's certainly an exciting weekend for any Tennessee fan with all of these sports going on. Can't make it to any of the games this weekend? We've got you covered on next Tuesday's edition of the Rocky Top Rundown. Speaking of fans, our own Shannon Sharp has this week's Rocky Top Rundown Fan of the Week.
The Tennessee Vols and Lady Vols have some of the most passionate, vocal, and unwaveringly loyal fans in college athletics. Some are born fans while others are made. Fans young, old, and all ages in between. And I've been searching campus to find the die-hard Vol fan to be the Rocky Top Rundown's Fan of the Week. This week's fan is Sam Farmer, a junior in engineering from Lebanon, Virginia. What makes Sam a Vol?
I was actually born here in the UT Medical Center, so I've always had the connection to Tennessee, raised on Tennessee, born Tennessee, so it just kind of made sense, I'm just going to go back to Tennessee. So, born and raised on it, the sports just kind of come with it. So I've always been a Tennessee fan through the bad years and the good years. As soon as I was born, I was like, all right, he's a Tennessee fan. And that was it. That was the end of the story. Never had any other considerations. It was Tennessee through and through.
Being a true fan, Sam supports multiple sports.
Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball. I want to go to a couple track meets, but about anything and everything. So, man of all trades here.
Sam described with us his favorite experience as a Vol fan.
I think one of my favorite experiences has been at a baseball game, one of the Florida baseball games last year, where we got particularly rowdy for one player on the Florida team, and it got to the point where the entire Lindsey Nelson Stadium was doing it with us, And then the pitcher comes in and throws 8 straight balls and walks 2 batters, and it was just absolutely wild. Students were going wild, fans were going wild, and I think that's probably one of the most fun experiences I've had in a game, other than maybe Brian Maurer's 80-yard pass to Callaway my freshman year against Georgia, which was also wild. But I think the Florida baseball game takes the cake for that one. It was crazy.
And that's the Rocky Top Rundown Fan of the Week.
Thank you, Shannon, and congrats again to Sam Farmer for being Rocky Top Rundown's first ever Fan of the Week.
All right, we've talked about it all week, but here we go. Big story. The Vols are traveling down to Gainesville on Saturday night to take on the Florida Gators in the Swamp. What do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, I think the biggest storyline for that game is for UT's head coach Josh Heupel. It's easily the biggest game of his career so far, young career. Obviously, his first season coaching Tennessee, but the Vols also have not won in Florida since 2003, and I mean that was before we could even remember the game. So I think that that's obviously something that that's big for the Vols, kind of going down there. They've been playing well these first 3 weeks outside of the game against Pitt, but kind of a chip on their shoulder maybe. They I think they have a little bit of confidence, maybe a little swagger going about them after the big win against Tennessee Tech, but to go down there and maybe to, probably not win the game, obviously, against a good Florida team, but maybe to find who they are, their identity as a team. But just to talk a little bit about Florida, their defense specifically, they allowed 21 points to Alabama in the first quarter last week, but almost came back to win. How did their defense lead that charge?
Oh, I mean, they are so aggressive on the defense. Dan Mullen and Todd Grantham's defense together, they swarmed to the ball. They got aggressive on blitz pickups, and they stopped Alabama from running the ball on Saturday, and they were just so good at keeping Alabama close together, and their secondary is elite, man. They've got 2 first-round corners right there, and they're going to create some problems for those Tennessee receivers.
Yeah, and I think on the other end of the spectrum, Tennessee's defense really, I think they've kind of impressed early on in the season.
Yeah, they've got a lot of tackles for loss and plays by players like Theo Jackson who are needing to take a lead. Florida doesn't have a lot of those elite pass catchers that they did last year. They've kind of changed their offense to be a run-heavy offense. But you need players to step up and shut down that running game, because then you have to force Emory Jones to throw the ball. And he's done a pretty good job at that now. But when they can run the ball, Florida is very good, controlling all of the tempo on the ground. So speaking of Emory Jones, what did you see from him against Alabama that makes you a little concerned for Tennessee's defense?
Yeah, well, I think kind of going into last week, Florida was kind of uncertain about who their cemented starting quarterback was, but Emory Jones silenced all of those questions, because even their coach Dan Mullen has said this week, if he plays like that, he will definitely be the starter. And like I said earlier, for Alabama to be down 21-0 and Florida to be down 21-0 and then outscore Alabama 29-10 the rest of the game, almost come back. I mean, that's on the back of Emory Jones. He was making throws all over the place, running the ball, honestly, to himself, and then him throwing the ball, that was able to open up the running game for Florida. But I think as it goes for Tennessee's quarterbacks, that's been kind of the biggest argument for fans this season, is kind of their inconsistency, is Joe Milton. Obviously, I know a lot of fans have noticed the numerous overthrows he's made on deep balls downfield. It's almost like, the receivers just having to run suicides out there. But I think, and then Josh Heupel said earlier this week that he doesn't go into hypotheticals about who the starter is going to be, because Joe Milton has been hurt. Last week, obviously, he didn't play, but Hendon Hooker, who was the second stringer to begin the season, really played well against Tennessee Tech. I think threw for 200 yards almost and 3 touchdowns, and was also Tennessee's leading rusher in the game. So I think for the Vols, even with a healthy Joe Milton, I think that Hendon Hooker is going to get the nod for the Vols on Saturday. But just to kind of wrap up what do you think about the running games from both teams? Obviously, Florida running it really well, and Tennessee kind of, not.
Well, on one side, you got Tennessee running back struggling, and on the other side, you have an aggressive Florida run game. It all runs through Emory Jones, of course. And he can carry the ball on any play. He can make it look like he's going to drop back to throw, but he's just going to scramble out and get you a first down. And it opens up the opportunities for these running backs. On these zone read options, Emory Jones looks at that crashing defensive end and decides, you know what, I'm going to let my running back go off. And they went off. They kept going in against Alabama's best defense. I mean, we're looking at players that were stars even on Tennessee's team last year on that Alabama defense, and they're getting bullied by these Florida running backs. And there's 3 different ones, and they all do the same thing. It's a 3-headed monster. They have size, speed, agility, and they will get past you, and they can also catch a pass out of the backfield, making Emory Jones that much more lethal in the offense.
Yeah, I mean, and also just as for Tennessee's running backs, what do you see from them?
Man, they've really struggled this year. Of course, when you're playing against Pitt, Tyon Evans not able to play, Jabari Small gets hurt. But Tennessee needs to open up the running game a little bit more. You can't rely on your quarterbacks to have most of your rushing yards like they did against Tennessee Tech. You got to have Jabari Small, if he's healthy, Tyon Evans playing, and even the freshman, Jalen Wright. You got to open up the holes for him, and they've got to play hard. And similar to Florida, you don't just have to give your running backs the ball on the ground. They can catch passes out of the backfield, and it creates another level of irritation for the defense to have to get after.
Yeah, and I think obviously it's a different defense Tennessee's going to face this week, but it is a bit concerning for Tennessee's leading rusher from a running back was only 45 yards last week against Tennessee Tech, and that's not going to fly against Florida's, whose defense is a heck of a lot better than a Tennessee Tech defense.
They always say the winner of the Tennessee-Florida rivalry is the team that runs the ball more. So who can run the ball more? That's the big question going into the game, right?
Yep, and I think, just to be honest, from Tennessee's standpoint, it's probably not going to be too pretty for them. Obviously, they're a young, inexperienced team. Florida is obviously ranked, and they're going to be hungry, especially after almost getting a huge win last week against Alabama. I think they're going to really want to prove to people that they can hang. Well, that's all we have for today's show, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the Rocky Top Rundown. For my co-host Matthew King and all of the crew, I'm Hayden Flatt, and we'll see you next time.